It's the Vegas Voice. Scams, schemes, and senior safety. Everything you need to know to avoid becoming a target of elder scams. Now, here's your host, the publisher of the Vegas Voice, Dan Roberts.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another segment of Scams, Schemes, and Senior Safety. I'm Dan Roberts, the publisher of the Vegas Voice, and our goal is to inform you of all the bad stuff that goes on. We're doing something different for 2025, and that we're going to be interviewing with those officials whose job it is and who have been protecting us from the various schemes. And I'm very lucky to have with me today Gary Barboa, who is the Chief Criminal Investigator from the Nevada Secretary of State, Securities Division.
That's it.
Gary, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to our segment. Tell us a little bit about what your office does and what you do.
Thank you for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it. Any opportunity to get information out there to try and protect the citizens of Nevada is a good opportunity for me. So to put it succinctly, our office has a lot of divisions, but what most people don't know is that our office has a criminal investigations division, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
It has 8 certified, post-certified by Nevada police officers. We investigate securities crime, various frauds, financial frauds, and voter crimes.
Really? You know, and you think there's so many different scams that I heard of everything, but there's a new one that's coming up, and I want to go into that with you, called pig butchering. I had no idea what it was until I heard you speak at Sun City Anthem. Tell us a little bit about pig butchering, because that's just a very unique term, to say the least.
It is. It's a unique term, and it covers a lot, right? So pig butchering is a term that kind of originated during COVID, right? It was a time when everybody was isolated. We were looking for more contact and kind of shut in our own homes, and it made people vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, you know, to put it at its most basic, pig butchering is fattening the hog for slaughter, right? That's what it's called on farms.
Yeah.
But in investment terms, what it means is scammers will continue to pump up someone that they know has a pool of money, be it small or large. Their aim is to take it all. Mm-hmm. And they'll continue to fatten you up and take as much as they can until you're done and you're out of money and they move on.
I mean, you have so many examples that you mentioned before, and some are just heartbroken. They're unbelievable. And some are like, how can they be that stupid? But they're really not. Right. I mean, you got examples. Give us an example of somebody who has money and lost it.
Right. So, you know, one of the instances that I saw recently was we had a gentleman who had money. He was a widower, lonely, as I mentioned, kind of shut in. A scammer reached out via one of the local social media apps, mm-hmm. Kind of acted as though it was an accident. Hey, sorry, do I have the wrong number? Conversation was engaged in, and before you know it, a friendship, if you want to call it that, had kind of materialized. And the end result was that over time, the person who he never met convinced him to drop $487,000, which was his life savings. And once they were done, he never heard from that person again.
I can imagine. It's just terrible. That's all there is to it. And yet, the person who is scammed, do they feel that they're at fault because they should have known better, or they're embarrassed? And how do you even overcome something like that?
That's a great question, because one of the things that I really always try and convey amongst a few other items is that you can never be ashamed, right? Never be ashamed, because it can happen to anybody, and it does happen to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen victims who only had a few $1,000s in their savings account, and I've seen victims that had millions of dollars get taken in their savings account. The best thing to do is put your shame and your fear that, hey, I'm going to look stupid, and call someone like me, because we can really help you. And not only will it help you, but it can help someone else from being victimized as well.
Well, you know, again, you have the Securities Division. Talk a little bit about that. That's different than the so-called gift card scam, so to speak.
Right. So in the Securities Division, usually, not always, but usually our cases involve hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Right, because you're talking about usually someone's life savings. That's in our realm. That's who's targeted.
Yeah.
They're not looking to get a gift card purchase from you, or even the Amazon purchase where you pay for somebody else's item. No, these tend to be investments where they want to bleed you dry. And you know, if they can get $2,000 or $3,000 from you, they will. But if they can get $500,000 or more from you, I've had up to $2.5 million stolen from a millionaire.
Oh my goodness!
And so it varies. Whatever they can get from you, which hence going back to fattening the hog for slaughter, whatever they can get, they will until the hog is done.
You know, and you mentioned the guy was a millionaire, so you think he has some idea, some brains, right? And yet, like you mentioned, it can really happen to anybody and everyone. And how do you protect yourself? Like, what would you tell me? I'm the first, I finally got some money. I'm retired. What do I do? How do I protect myself?
I mean, there's a whole slew of items, right? But it's most basic. Let's cover about 4 items. The first thing is you want to do your own due diligence. And what I mean by that is it could be something as serious as contacting another investment advisor and asking for their opinions on what has been offered. But it could also be something as simple as doing a Google search.
Brilliant.
One of the things that we covered in our presentations to you was that a lot of these folks, if they had done a simple Google search, they would discover that the person who was offering them the investment in the first place had already done prison time for securities fraud. And there was one individual who he was able to rob a couple of different women from several $100,000. And if you did a Google search, the first 14 items that came up were all about him having served prison time and the scam that he had done previously.
Isn't that something?
So do your due diligence. The other thing is to be skeptical, right? Anybody who's a traditional investment advisor or sales, they're not ever going to come to you. You're never going to get a text from them. You're not going to get a text from Merrill Lynch saying, hey, I'm interested in talking to you. They're not going to cold call you. What they are going to do is they're going to sit in their office and wait for you to contact them. These scammers will reach out to you via mail, by email, phone calls, text messages, because they know it only takes one mistake in clicking or responding, and then they might have you, right? The third item I want to make sure I cover is make sure that if you think it's too good to be true, it is.
Always
right?
is.
Oh, always is.
Yeah.
There's one of the things I see pretty much in every case we work on is that someone will make an offer and they'll say, Dan, this is 100%. No matter what amount you invest in, I can pay you back not only what you invested, but I'll double your money in 10 days.
Yeah.
Who ever heard of that, right? There's a reason why banks and financial institutions offer 3%, 10%, depending on what kind of investment you're making. Nobody's going to give you 100% return. In some cases, I had one instance where the person offered a 250% return plus your original investment in 14 days.
I mean, who would believe? When a guy comes to you and tells you that, in the back of your mind, are you saying, what is the matter with you?
Right.
I mean, we're not talking about a real elaborate scheme. This is something where 250%, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, I think what happens is, I had a question one time during one of my presentations was that, does it come down to greed? And I don't think it does. What I think it comes down to is they prey on your desire to do better, right?
Okay.
Not just for yourself, because a lot of us have to worry about whether we have children or grandchildren, or they want to try and help somebody out. I had one individual who, her whole aim in life, she lost $87,000, which was everything she had. And her whole aim was to try and provide for her grandchildren if she could. And so they take advantage of that. So I don't think it ever comes down to greed. So I think when they make these offers in your head, you're like, well, I could help buy their first car. I could help send them to college. Yeah. You see a lot of things, and what they see and what they show you is the possibility at the end, but they don't show you all the mud in the middle, right? Yeah. And then the last thing I want to make sure I hammer on that we brought up already is don't be too embarrassed to ask questions. And this is even before you've been scammed. If something seems too good to be true, or you're not sure why you keep getting these messages from this 23-year-old girl, who you've never met before, ask some questions. Yeah. Whether it be from a neighbor, for whoever you want to ask, it's much better to ask questions and maybe get a second or third opinion that maybe will be that voice of reason to go, hey, this seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
I need to look into it.
And you mentioned it previously, and I want to bring it up. I guess if it's a valid investment person, Merrill Lynch, they won't just text you on your own, hi, how are you?
Right.
Or they won't telephone, they won't call you.
Right.
Is it something where, based upon what you've seen, every time that happens, it's a scam coming up?
Almost 100%.
Isn't that something though? Yeah.
Because they don't want to just call you, even if it was somebody like a reputable house, but they want to call you and say, hey, if you're ever interested, you ever need somebody, you come talk to us at our office, whatever. These individuals, they will contact you and immediately make an offer, right?
Just right then and there.
And almost without fault, in the first few minutes of your discussion, they're going to make you an offer that normally only goes to family and friends, but they can tell from their brief conversation on the phone with you that you're a good person.
But just for you, they can give it to you.
Exactly,
You know, it's like
right.
a special sale.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, you have to be cynical. You have to ask questions. You don't give them your money or your trust until you are absolutely sure. And like I said, do a Google search. Check out other people, what their reactions are. In the few minutes or so that we have left, if people want more information from your office, or they have a problem, God forbid, and they don't know who to speak to, how do they get a hold of you or your office?
So I have a couple of ways, and I have no problem if people reach out to me. So you can actually call my direct desk line. So it's 702-486-2597. Or you can reach me at email, gbarboa@sos.nv.gov. And you can also just go and visit our website. So a lot of people, because they don't understand a lot of what the Nevada Secretary of State's office does, there's a whole section on our website that is dedicated to investment and investment scams and what to look for, red flags, questions you should be asking. All that is on our website.
And again, as Gary mentioned, don't be embarrassed or ashamed or humiliated. I have to ask questions. I don't understand it, because it's your life. And like I said, the scammers, they'll take every penny from you.
Absolutely right. And that's something you just said kind of raises something for me. A traditional house, if you ask a lot of questions, they're going to answer all those questions, right? And if they can't, they're going to tell you, I'm not sure. Let me find out for you. Because, I know I have a financial guy. I'm sure you do as well. And one of the things he always tells me is, like, it's your money. So let's figure out what you want to do with it. What the scammers will do, the more questions you ask, the angrier they'll become.
They'll get angry, yeah.
They'll get angry, or they'll tell you, look, Dan, I want to answer all your questions, but I actually have to hop on a plane, or I have to have the investment in the next half hour. Are you in or you're out, man? And if not, I have another guy. It's kind of like the old car sales technique, right? Where I have another guy who wants to buy the same car. And to me, in my opinion, if you get those kind of red flags, walk away.
Walk away.
There'll be other opportunities.
And and I'm sure everyone said, well, I had a little feeling in the pit of my stomach that maybe I shouldn't have done it, but it was such a good deal.
Right.
One of those things. And again, if you get those feelings, walk away. If the person is saying, listen, you're asking way too many questions, I don't have time for you, the answer is great, walk away.
Right.
So, Gary, I thank you so much for being here. I'd like to have you or your office again down the road.
Anytime.
And all these questions. And this is Dan Roberts for the Vegas Voice saying we'll see you again next time. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Dan.